Coming up on Lawmakers, the Senate passes the constitutional amendment that would effectively ban gay marriage in Georgia. The House Appropriations Committee approves the FY'04 Supplemental Budget. And voices from both sides of the tort reform debate are heard under the Gold Dome. Those stories and more are coming up next.
Live from Atlanta, this is Lawmakers for Monday, February 16th. Here are your hosts, Wendy Lawson and Gerald Bryant.
Good evening, everyone. Also on tonight's broadcast, legislation that would prohibit international outsourcing of Georgia government call centers.
And a closer look at teaching in Georgia, but our top story tonight, gay marriage.
The state Senate today approves a constitutional amendment banning gay marriage. Those for it say it's a matter of fundamental values. Opponents say it's legislating morality and ignoring pressing state problems. Here's Senator Mike Krotz, who sponsored the resolution, and Senator Nadine Thomas, who opposes it.
Family is the foundation of our country, and that marriage is the foundation of the family. I believe in our faith-based conservative values because I think that they are the fundamental values that have held our nation together for so many years.
And why are you working so hard to legislate moral values? Because we all must stand before a powerful being to answer to whatever we may be doing wrong.
Senate Resolution 595, recognizing marriages only between men and women, passed 40-14. More on the debate in a moment, but first, reaction to today's vote.
Well, David Zelski joins us live from the Capitol with that reaction to the passage of Senate Resolution 595. David.
Well, thanks, Wendy. Senator Mike Krotz says this resolution is necessary to keep judges from legislating issues like this from the bench, but many who oppose say the resolution has different intentions and that there are more important issues to debate this session.
You need to go through the legislative process and bring them forward, let the people have an opportunity to voice their opinions, rather than have an activist judge draw the ruling from the bench. And that's the whole purpose of this bill.
I think he may be sincere. I know he's involved in a campaign for Congress, and I think, it's probably good politics for him. But good politics in the short term is bad policy for the state of Georgia.
I stood there and listened to things, and I had to remind myself that I was in the 21st century living in America, and I was still hearing. So I would just ask, in conclusion, what is it that we've done? How have we addressed the most serious issues that are facing our state today? The people that don't have health care, the people that don't have jobs. What happened to make our planet better today?
This was not something that I was doing against particular people. It was a matter of what I believe that is important for the family process in our state.
People here know that whether or not we like or dislike any group of people, all people have a right to be treated equally, and the Constitution should never be used as a weapon.
The resolution now goes to the House, where it must again receive a two-thirds vote, and from there it would need a majority vote from the people come election time in November. Reporting live, I'm David Zelski for Lawmakers.
Thank you, David.
And now more of today's Senate debate on that resolution, putting a ban on gay marriage in the state constitution. As you heard, Senator Mike Krotz, one of the sponsors of the measure, said it was needed because activist judges could rule that gay marriages are legal. Opponents see it as interference in private lives. Here is some of today's debate.
You see, you ran an election and the people said, this is what we want you to go do. We want you to speak on our behalf. I said in the beginning, these people up here in the gallery, they want you to speak on their behalf. But there's a process of doing it. There's a way to do it, and it's not to be done from the bench. Why do we need it? We've lost our 10 Commandments out of the courthouses. We've lost prayer out of the schools. Now we're being told how we're going to decide on what the sanctity of marriage is. You say, where is it going to end? It's going to end when you take the responsibilities you got elected to take. When you stand up and do what's right for the people that sent you here.
Instead of trying to make Georgia a better place, a safer place, the Republican leadership is wasting our time trying to write discrimination into the Georgia Constitution.
I want to warn you. You start trying to out-moral each other around here, somebody's going to break their neck. Because that white horse is tall, and the fall will kill you.
And as an African American, I could not but take this well and say what we're doing today is wrong.
Senator Valencia C. offered an amendment that would ban adultery. If passed, that ban could have ended up in the Constitution. That amendment lost in 2 tie votes.
Is it not true that this is just an opportunity for those who believe in the Bible and that adultery is a sin and will vote green on this?
That is the chair's understanding. On the adoption of the amendment, the yeas are 26 and the nays are 26, and the amendment is lost. Chair, Senator the Second moves that the Senate reconsider its action in failing to adopt amendment number 5. On the adoption of amendment number 5, the yeas are 27, the nays are 27, and the amendment is lost. Question now is on the passage. We may not reconsider an item more than once.
Again, the Defense of Marriage Act passed 40 to 14, 2 more than the 2/3 majority needed for constitutional questions. All the amendments fail. The measure moves to the House, where, should it get out of committee, it would need 120 votes. If it passes the House, it could be on the ballot in November.
Well, the man known as Mr. Speaker for almost 3 decades is in serious condition at Piedmont Hospital in Atlanta this evening following a series of strokes. Tom Murphy received a pacemaker last week. Saturday, he was readmitted to the hospital having suffered a minor stroke, and this morning, doctors say he had a major stroke. His prognosis at this point is guarded, with his strokes being attributed to an anticoagulant.
There is always the possibility if a person is taken off a blood thinner, whether that be aspirin or any of the other antiplatelet drugs, or whether it be Coumadin, there is a risk that one has in that period of time for development of a recurrent stroke. That may be due to the fact that the stroke could occur from the heart, from any kind of formation of a blood clot. So this is a period at which a person is more at risk for a stroke.
Meanwhile, those who served with Speaker Murphy started the day with prayer in his honor. Majority Leader Jimmy Skipper encouraged the House to take some time to remember their friend before getting down to the business of the day.
To make the most of it.
We come to a point, sometimes during the legislative session, sometimes not, that we realize that even though we're doing the state's business and we're doing a lot of very important business here under the Gold Dome, there are some things that are even more important than that. And some of you have heard that Speaker Murphy is in the hospital, and the Speaker Coleman asked me to bring you an update. We had not discussed this publicly because, quite frankly, you know, those of you who were here when Speaker Murphy was here, he wasn't into talking about himself and those kind of things. But Speaker Coleman thought, and I think others thought, including myself, that it would be appropriate for us to stop for a moment in the busy day that we have coming today and simply think about and pray for Mr. Murphy's speedy recovery.
Doctors at Piedmont Hospital say Mr. Murphy has been able to speak a few words and that he's resting comfortably with his family. The next 2 to 3 days are expected to be critical in determining his neurological condition.
Senate Majority Leader Bill Stevens says it's promising that House leaders have found $90 million unallocated dollars in the supplemental budget. Friday, House leaders said they could use that money to reduce cuts to education spending. Here's what Stevens had to say.
Well, it was pretty clear that a mistake was made somewhere, but that's good news that they were able to find it. With a $16 billion budget, you have people in the House and the Senate and administration who are constantly reviewing where we are with that budget, and I think it kind of proves that the system works, that somebody identified it exactly where it was. We were able to address it. Thank goodness it was a positive number and not a negative number. But I think that the notion of trying to help education and children is a good idea. However, I think we need to think before we delay pay increases for teachers. I'll point out that roughly a third of what they're proposing to save from this found money, as they call it, it just comes from a shifting of when the pay increase goes into effect for teachers and state employees. And last year, I recall the House criticizing the governor pretty extensively for shifting a payday. So here they come this year doing the same thing. So I think we need to look at that and see what it means. Also, I would caution everybody in both the House and the Senate we need to be real cautious about what we do in the '04 budget, because we're not out of the woods yet with that.
The House Appropriations Committee this morning approved the mid-year adjustments to the 2004 budget, including a $271 million restoration to the education budget announced Friday. But first, there was a disagreement between the chairman of the Appropriations and the Health and Human Services Committees. Representative Buddy Childers said a subcommittee recommendation for a 2.5% cut had turned into a 25% reduction to health programs.
Well, I would suggest to you, I know they're important programs and there's nothing personal about this, but we can certainly take this to conference committee when we get that far.
Well, I'd appreciate it if we could work this out before.
I don't think we're going to be able to work it out, Mr. Childers. We'll try to work it out in conference. Your points are well taken. I'll work with you. I pledge that. I'm sure Mr. Parrish and Mr. Smyer will work with you.
And I appreciate that, but our subcommittee had recommended this. We'd talked with you about this, and I'm just really shocked to see this in here like this, and I would like an opportunity to work with you before the budget gets
Well, you know, we don't try to take any amendments once the bill gets on the floor of the House, Mr. Childers. I'll be happy to work with you again. I'm sorry if you're upset about it. Suggest you talk to Mr. Hobbs. Next question.
A Childers amendment to reconsider the health cuts failed. Appropriations sent the House Bill 1180 directly to the House Rules Committee, which agreed to place the supplemental budget on tomorrow's calendar. Debate is expected on the House floor tomorrow afternoon.
In other news, members of the Georgia Coalition for Civil Justice expressed their support for tort reform. Lawmakers Chrissy Thrasher joins us live with more from today's rally. Chrissy.
Gerald, the group says one way to control rising medical malpractice insurance premiums and lawsuits is to have the Georgia General Assembly pass some sort of tort reform. The Georgia Coalition for Civil Justice is here today with a message.
Let's pass civil justice reform. Let's do it now.
The group says without tort reform, frivolous lawsuits and excessive jury awards may lead to the loss of several critical medical services in Georgia.
Over a period of time, the malpractice premiums will become so high that it will cause hospitals like mine 2 years ago to start shutting down services. And when that happens, then you are taking health care from Georgians.
And doctors and hospitals aren't the only ones who see a need for tort reform. According to a recent survey of 600 Georgia voters, 86% expressed the importance to pass legislation to curb excessive lawsuits against physicians and hospitals.
The reality is, I think if you talk to the guy on the street, they will tell you that they're sick and tired of hearing about the McDonald's awards, about the huge awards, these nonsensical awards that the juries are giving to people. And I think people are tired of it.
Well, I think it's clear from the polling data that you saw revealed here today that the people of Georgia want something done to address the problem of the liability crisis that this state faces that has already begun to deprive Georgians of access to adequate health care and is just going to get worse if something's not done to reverse the trend.
And the coalition currently has 5 pieces of legislation in the House. Reporting live, I'm Chrissy Thrasher for Lawmakers.
Chrissy, before you go, remind us of the status of these bills.
Well, all the bills are currently in the House Judiciary Committee for further review.
Thank you very much. Meanwhile, those opposed to tort reform involving caps for non-economic damages also argued their case today. Among them were several surviving family members of medical malpractice cases. Jesse Freeman is live at the Capitol with more on that part of the story. Jesse.
Thank you, Gerald. Opponents of capping awards for non-economic damages to malpractice victims say the caps would curb victims' rights. They say in many cases the victims' lawyers work on a contingency basis and they're paid out of those awards. Several victims' families members in those exact situations spoke today, including Robert Robinson, who is a pastor in Macon. He lost his daughter when she had a reaction to too much allergy medicine.
Maybe caps would help in frivolous lawsuits, but ours is not frivolous. And the only way we could get competent representation was on a contingency fee basis. That means that our lawyers took the case without us paying them anything. The only way they would get paid is if there was an award given at the end.
And Reverend Robertson said he couldn't have afforded a viable lawyer on a non-contingency basis. His case has been settled, but he said he wouldn't want to see others in his situation unable to procure representation because of the caps. The consumer protection group Georgia Watch says that sort of financial predicament creates an access to justice issue.
If you're going to cap damages at $250,000, especially for senior citizens and stay-at-home moms, the working poor, and children who don't have a lot of salary or economics to become compensation in court, what you get left with is a $250,000 cap, and a lawyer could easily spend that much trying to take a case all the way through, which could take 10 years. So we're really looking at that as an access to justice issue.
And Ms. Kelly also said that in order to deal with rising malpractice premiums, the state should look at insurance reform, including making insurance companies subject to antitrust laws and increasing public disclosure of possible rate increases. Reporting live, I'm Jesse Freeman for Lawmakers.
Thank you very much, Jesse.
Well, House Speaker Terry Coleman today responded to the recent federal ruling rejecting Georgia House and Senate maps, saying, quote, "We have no choice but to be diligent in our efforts to draw lines that we hope will satisfy the court." Speaker Coleman added that he thinks this ruling will be vital not only to Georgia but to 24 other states who have questionable maps. And in other news, Representative John Noel held a press conference this morning announcing legislation that seeks to ban international outsourcing of any call centers that provide information on state and local government within Georgia. House Bill 1357 is backed by various trade unions such as the Teamsters and the AFL-CIO.
We are promoting the use of taxpayer dollars to send entry-level jobs, the very jobs that we need for these welfare recipients that are calling the call center program in the state of Georgia. We are sending them abroad. And I'll be darned as a state legislator if I'm going to let my taxpayer dollars go to fund overseas job creation. The state of Georgia right now is employing hundreds of people in a call center receiving millions of calls for an $8 million contract that promotes and creates jobs in India. That is unconscionable, and we should rectify it, we should create it, and we should pass this legislation that I have introduced.
House Bill 1357 is currently in the House State Institutions and Property Committee.
Meanwhile, the Senate today passes Lieutenant Governor Mark Taylor's public safety legislation, which includes Senate Bill 457 that provides more assistance in sexual assault cases. Here's Senator Faye Smith.
1 in 4 women will be a victim, I repeat that, of sexual assault somewhere in her life. 1 in 6 boys will be sexually assaulted before or by the age of 18. Sad situation. An estimated 92,700 men are forcibly raped each year in the United States. 84% of all rapes are committed by someone known to that victim. The purpose of this bill is to make sure that every community in Georgia has a set plan for how to investigate, how to prosecute sexual assault in a manner respectful to the victims and focused on the proper collection of evidence to increase successful prosecution.
Senate Bill 457 passed 46-0. Also passed today was Senate Bill 482, which closes a loophole in the DNA database in Georgia.
Well, black police officers who were prevented from participating in the state retirement system may soon be granted a reprieve. Representative Tyrone Brooks has led a 4-year quest to grant these officers retroactive benefits. He explains why this measure is needed.
The fund was set up in 1950, and obviously the laws of this state would not have permitted African Americans to join the fund until 1964. But even after 1964, there was still a problem for African Americans to get into the fund. So 1976 was the year that the fund really opened its doors to those African-American officers of this state.
Although most House members agree with the bill's intent, some question the feasibility of funding the program. Here's Representative Fran Millar.
Am I right that the cost of this for this year, for the first year, is $1,320,000?
The cost on this is $1.3 million times 30 years.
I guess one final question. Do you know, is this in the budget for the upcoming year for 2005?
It has not been, and at the present time, according to the Public Standards Law, any bill that's passed by the General Assembly and not funded if it takes an funded appropriation stands null and void on July the 1st.
The bill allows an officer of any race who was unaware of the retirement program to apply for benefits by the end of this year. A committee substitute to House Bill 1027 passed by a vote of 162 to 3 and now heads to the Senate.
Meanwhile, in the Senate, they pass a bill which provides for closer monitoring of convicted child molesters. Senator Nathan Dean explains.
Senate Bill 469 does simply one thing. It allows the judge, other than the sentence executed by himself to incarceration, can require the individual to wear a leg brace and be monitored via satellite 24 hours a day, 7 days a week when they restrict him within that area. You know, we have a monitoring system now, but it only includes if you're in the house. You must stay house there all the time with the monitoring system. But with this one, you can go wherever the court allows you to go, and the monitoring system via satellite will keep track of you at all times.
Senate Bill 469 passed without opposition and goes to the House.
While those who purchase property at a tax sale could soon be required to return it within 15 days after the former owner pays tax debt. House Bill 1170 would also require the lien purchaser to have an address in the county where the property was purchased. Representative Bill Heath believes the measure will discourage the purchase of the liens and make it difficult for counties to collect taxes. Bill sponsor Representative Bob Holmes responds.
And is it not also true that the counties have gone through an extensive process of notifying these people that their property was going to be FI-paid?
The answer to the first two questions is yes. The answer to the third question is no. They do not, in fact, have to do this. In other words, I talked to the Georgia Taxpayers Association, the tax commissioners. They were down there. They supported this bill 100% because they currently do not have to do that. The person has to take that particular responsibility. That is, once the person or the corporation in this instance purchases the property, it is their responsibility to make the payments and to, in fact, contact whomever has purchased their property to get the property back. And all they're saying, and they agree, they even wanted it to be done by certified mail as well. So know that all of the tax commissioners support this.
An effort to amend the residency requirement failed, and House Bill 1170 passed by a 132 to 36 vote and now moves to the Senate.
The House today agrees that probate courts should not only have the jurisdiction over guardianships when administering workers' compensation awards to minor children. Representative Mickey Chanel explains that separation or divorce can lead to the money being held.
Currently, the probate court of any county can appoint a guardian. What this does is allows other courts of competent jurisdiction to appoint a guardian. The reason for that is that when a person dies, leaves behind minor children and otherwise who are out of state, they've been having some problems getting that done.
House Bill 1278 also raises the minimum workers' comp award that would qualify for a guardianship from $25,000 to $50,000. The measure passed 168 to 0 and moves to the Senate.
While preparing for future teacher shortages, the state board that licenses educators voted last week to credential college graduates who do not hold education degrees. I talked to the head of the Professional Standards Commission about how he expects these new recruits to fare in the classroom.
We feel that these people who've had a lot of life experiences can handle that classroom.
After passing exams in subject areas and education principles, these teachers will intern under master teachers for 5 years. Declining enrollment in some systems, including Atlanta Public Schools, coupled with a national recession that makes teaching more attractive to those already in the profession, has led the state to hire 1,500 fewer teachers this year than last. But the Professional Standards Commission does not expect this trend to last.
Most of the new hires were to replace people who had retired or for those who just got out of the profession. So that equates to about 11,000 new hires this year. But we do predict, though, by 2010 we'll need 20,000 new teachers, and it'll keep climbing after that.
The legislature is responding to the call for experienced teachers to improve education outcomes, with several House measures allowing retired teachers to return to the classroom without losing benefits. The Professional Standards Commission is using student achievement as a benchmark for its new certification process.
In that 5-year period, if they've documented and that they can impact student achievement, that principal wants to hire them, they recommend them to us, and we'll certify them with a clear renewable certificate.
Other changes adopted by the Professional Standards Commission last week include waiving the 2.5 GPA requirement for those who graduated from college a decade or more ago, and allowing experienced out-of-state teachers to work in Georgia without having to meet all of the state's credentialing rules. The new certification standards go into effect in March.
Legislation that protects freedom of speech and the right to petition was given a due pass from a House Judiciary Subcommittee today. House Bill 1069 defines which acts, both communicative and non-communicative, that are protected under the anti-strategic lawsuit against public participation, or anti-SLAPP legislation, that was passed in 1993.
In the recent past, a case has come before the Georgia Supreme Court, Browns Mill Development versus Denton. In a split decision of the Georgia Supreme Court, they determined that non-communicative conduct was not covered by SLAPP. And so my bill is to clarify that non-communicative speech could be covered by anti-SLAPP.
An amendment to the bill that will allow plaintiffs and defendants to appeal charges made against them is currently being drafted.
Many animal lovers are excited about the new spay and neuter program in Georgia, made possible by Animal Friend license plates. Angelina Washington tells us more.
Overpopulation of dogs and cats is a problem in Georgia, and the Commissioner of Georgia's Department of Agriculture has a solution.
It's to raise funds for a very worthy project to try to stem and provide funding for spayed and neutered so we can keep and control the unwanted pets, cats and dogs throughout Georgia.
Every year, thousands of dogs and cats are euthanized in order to reduce the number of stray animals housed in shelters. The spay-neuter program is designed to help pay veterinarians for spay and neuter procedures.
In only 4 months that this program has offered spay and neuters, 200 veterinarians have performed 900 procedures in 100 Georgia counties.
Governor Perdue proclaimed February official spay and neuter your pet in Georgia month.
Folks, when you purchase the special dog and cat license plate for a one-time fee of $25, almost $22 of that goes to the fund that would directly fund the spay and neuter procedures.
Proponents say that the program will save taxpayers millions of dollars and has already brought close to $200,000 in revenue.
And it's just simply a matter of just requesting it when you go in to get your new tag for your car.
The dog and cat specialty license plates can be purchased through your local tag office. I'm Angelina Washington for Lawmakers.
And coming up tomorrow on Lawmakers, the House is expected to bring the Supplemental Appropriations Budget to the floor for a vote. We'll have that story and all the latest from under the Gold Dome tomorrow at 7. Just another reminder, for those of you with access to the Internet, you can watch Lawmakers online. Just visit our website at www.gpb.org. Lawmakers is streamed live, then archived on our site every night we're on the air. Now stay tuned for Find with the Kino brothers of the Antique Roadshow fame. Find is next here on Georgia Public Broadcasting.
And that's our broadcast for this, the 18th day of the Georgia General Assembly. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Inwandi Lawson.
And I'm Gerald Bryant. For everyone here at Lawmakers, have a great evening.